Hey, this is Jim Florentine here with Corey Taylor, and we're here to promote Corey's book out July 12th, 7 Deadly Sins. Now, why would you write a book about this? Like, you always think, like, I would think like the autobiography would come first because you've done enough, you've been successful enough where you could write something like that at this point in your career.
Yeah.
But then you go way out in left field, and this, I read most of it so far, and it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, first of all, you should be a comic.
Oh, well.
There's lines in there. I'm like, man, I wish I thought of that. I'm going to use that on stage. I'll give him credit.
Thanks, man.
But no,
Thank
it's
you.
really good. So, but why this angle?
That was kind of me going back and forth with my agent, actually, because I'd been threatening to write a book for a long time. But at the same time, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry writes an autobiography, I didn't want to just do that, you know? I mean, my approach to writing is very much my same approach to music. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing, you know? I want to do kind of my thing. And so I was originally going to do a book about philosophy and kind of take the piss out of that, but at the same time kind of talk about my own philosophies and whatnot. And what he kind of hit me to is like, it's very broad. You know, it's hard to kind of shape that into something that could be palatable to somebody. It's like, so we started kind of throwing ideas back and forth. And he's the one that said, well, you know, why don't you try the 7 Deadly Sins? And I immediately fired back with, well, what if I did it from the standpoint that they're not sins? And that's kind of what got that going. Because it's true. You know, I mean, the way I wrote it, if I was going to do it, I needed to make sure that the argument was legitimate, you know, even if it's, you know, it kind of, you know, there's humor in it. I still wanted to be very poignant and serious, you know.
Right.
So, so that kind of got me excited about it. And I was like, that's cool. And then I can kind of balance that with stories. So it's kind of got that autobiography kind of feel to it. But at the same time, it's still a book trying to make a point, you know, trying to make a statement and whatnot. And hopefully people don't get bored with it, you know? I mean, so it was just, it was a way for me to kind of incorporate all the different things that I'd always wanted to do in a book.
Right. Yeah, no, there is a lot of personal stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like in the beginning of the book, you just say, look, the 7 Deadly Sins are bullshit.
Yeah.
I love that. It's just like, okay. You go, and I'm going to tell you why. And then you just go through chapter through chapter, bend through every one of them and give examples and go, look, what's wrong with this?
Yeah. I mean, I've come out the other side and I'm a good person for it, you know? I mean, you got to know where you've been if you're going to know where you're going. And if you kind of pretend that the rust that you've accumulated over the years doesn't exist, then you're just kind of you're cutting yourself off from who you are.
Right.
You know? I mean, you have to remember who you are and where you came from and whatnot. That doesn't mean you can't change, but at the end of the day, you have to know why you're doing certain things. And the reason for me kind of writing this book was kind of to reinforce my whole mindset of trying to be a good person, trying to be a good father, trying to be a good husband, trying to be a good friend, bandmate, band leader, whatever you want to call it. And it really has, you know. It's like I look back and I'm like, yeah, I made all these mistakes, but that's exactly what they were. You know, I mean, in the book I say, you know, there's a difference between sins and mistakes. Sins stick with you forever according to, you know, scripture. Mistakes, you can learn from mistakes and turn them around and move on, you know. So what's the difference here?
Well, how did you get to this point in your life where you were like, all right, this is, you know, I'm going to forget the past, all the crap that I did, all the bad stuff, and I'm okay with myself. And it's, you know, because you got to get to a point in your life where you can actually be at peace with yourself.
Yeah.
All the shitty things you did.
It was right around the time the first time I quit drinking and really kind of started to try and get my life together. You know, it was around 2003. It was late 2003. We were right in the middle of making Volume 3 with Slipknot, and my life had just been getting darker and darker and darker. And it was because it was for a lot of reasons. You know, I was refusing to look at certain things in my life that were giving me problems. I was refusing to look at the way that I treated other people. So I was kind of burying that under tons of Jack Daniels, and it was really getting bad, to the point where, you know, that the infamous, you know, nearly jumping off the 8th story balcony at the Hyatt on Sunset. And the next day I kind of woke up, and it was that kind of moment of clarity that a lot of people talk about. And I'm not in the program. Like, I'm not sober. You know, I'm not that guy.
Right.
I just know what's right for my life. So I kind of woke up, had that moment where I was just like, oh, okay, this isn't good, you know. And I had enough friends trying to help me that I kind of saw what I was doing. And that was really kind of the first step, you know, was taking responsibility for the things that I had done instead of just kind of sloughing them off and being like, you know, whatever. I'm not, you know, I'm Corey Taylor. What, you know, whatever, you know. It was a long road, you know. I mean, and really the last year, maybe the year before that, was where I really kind of started to kind of get my feet underneath me and feel like I'm moving in the right direction, you know, and trying to be, you know, a better father, you know, a husband again with my wife. And, you know, it's just every little extra thing is great.
And it's, I mean, you don't even get into it too much in the book, but your childhood was just brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the worst I've ever read before or heard of.
Yeah.
You know, and that stuff eventually, you know, if you don't, you got to work, you got to fix it.
Yeah.
Eventually, or you're just going to go down a bad path. And you actually did it in like 2000. I mean, but some of the stuff in the book is just, I mean, just insane. Living from house to house, you lived in a closet for a few years.
Yeah, in a bathroom. Yeah,
in a bathroom. Raped at 11 years old, and it's just, you know, living from house to house, crazy people in the house. You didn't want to come home.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was brutal. You know, I mean, and I'm not. You know, and in retrospect, you know, and I've talked to a lot of kids who follow both bands, and compared to them, you know, my upbringing was pretty tame. You know, but because I was able to kind of process it and work it out in my music, those kids are able to kind of work it out in their life, you know, and I've helped them realize that it's temporary, you know. I mean, it only lasts so long. You can get out of it, you know, and I'm very proud of that, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a point in my life where I almost gave up. I was like, this is the worst hell. Every day is worse than the next, you know. But I kept reminding myself, it's like, I know I'm destined for something. I know I'm meant to do something, not pivotal, but just something big. You know, I'm meant to do something with my life. And when I got away from that, that's really when I started kind of put all my energy into that. You know, making music, taught myself how to play. You know, taught myself how to write, and really kind of cut my teeth at an early age in the basement without a band. You know, just kind of trying to figure out musically what I wanted to do, and music saved me. You know, I mean, you know how to, you know, we grew up, you know, like with the same music. So, you know, discovering Metallica, discovering Megadeth, discovering Anthrax, Slayer, you know, this band, that rage that really just kind of was like, oh, thank God, you know, I've got this, you know. So I would bury myself in it. And, you know, so in a lot of ways, music saved me, and now my music is saving other people.
Yeah, exactly. Metal is always, any kids that were into metal when they were younger, that was their outlet.
Yeah,
you know, that was their outlet to listen to. Hey, I'm in a pissed off mood. I want to I want to blow away the whole school with a friggin' shotgun. Let me go home and listen to some Metallica. All right, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I got the aggression out, man. That's how we dealt with it.
I can't tell you how many times I sat in my room with my headphones on, just playing Angel of Death over and over and over. And I was just like, I just got to the point where I knew every nuance of that song, you know. It wore out tapes, and yeah, it was it saved me, you know. That music saved me, and that's why you know, in retrospect, man, I'm very I'm just really grateful for everything that I've got, you know.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing ride. It's in one of the chapters, in the Lust chapter, you write about how, you know, you're just screwing around with different women. You don't really care. There's no emotional connection. You got two girls going back and forth. You're like, hey, I don't want to, you know, I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finally you get to a point where you're at a party.
Yeah.
They both confront you. They're freaking out on you. You're like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
Somehow you go in the kitchen. Some girl pushes you. You split your
came down.
You split your elbow open.
Yeah. Yeah. You can still see the C scar.
Big. Oh wow. Big.
See it?
Yep.
Yeah,
big
right
scar
there.
on the elbow.
Elbow came down right on those hard, like 1970s handles that are on the cupboards, you know, like they just oh, there they are. My elbow came right down on it, could immediately see bone, and I was like, oh wow, and it was a creepy C. You know, like it was almost a perfect C, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I'm wasted, so
Right.
I'm like, "Oh!" Yeah, and the chick is like, "Well, just put a Band-Aid on it." She's panicking, you know, and I'm like, "This is not a Band-Aid wound. This is, you know, I mean, we got to go to the hospital." So can't really feel it, you know. So we jump in the car. I pass out. I wake up in the ER. Wake up in the emergency room, face down. I got a broken cigarette in my mouth. And they're literally stitching me up, and I can't even feel it. And these two girls have not stopped arguing the entire time, but now they're trying to fawn me off on each other. And I'm like, really?
Because they both liked you, you're both seeing them, and they were like, "You take him, you take him. He's a mess.
Now,
he's a mess."
But now they hate me.
Now they hate
now
you.
I'm the devil. So they're like, "No, I never liked him. Oh, I never liked him." It was just ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, that's honestly been one of the biggest things in my life that I've had to try and figure out, you know.
But it was funny because you left Des Moines, moved to Denver to start your music career.
Yeah.
You had all that crap go down, your whole lust, just screwing around, banging chicks in cars, wherever.
It was-
And then those two, it came to a head that night, screaming in your ear.
Yeah.
You bust open your elbow. You know what? I'm going back to Des Moines.
Going back.
And then you said, and I went back there and I started Stone Sour, and then Slipknot happened a few years later.
Yeah.
If that crap never happened, my lust for all these women, I wouldn't have went back. I would have been stuck in Denver and working in a factory or wherever, and I would have never been in these two great bands.
And one of the things that I don't think I really even say in the book is that if it hadn't been for lust, I wouldn't have met certain women that I dated in my life, and that really inspired certain songs that I wrote, you know, that really kind of, you know, because you need that inspiration, you know, no matter what. I mean, you can't just sit down and go, I'm going to write a love song, you know. I mean, if you haven't felt it, you know. And so I'm, you know, because of that led me to certain situations and certain people that brought certain songs out of me. So, I mean, I wouldn't have had that inspiration either if it hadn't been for that lust, you know. But I did let it get me into a lot of trouble, but I'm okay now.